welcome to Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms. This is Raph, streaming to you live, high above the keep in the hot air balloon. Tonight, we have Walton, returning from his hiatus here. Alright, say hi, Walton.
Hello.
Alright, and we also got Neindorf. How you doing, Neindorf?
Doing well.
Alright, so today is January 31st. It's a Monday night, and we had a really great AMA today. And what we're trying to do is we're going to go through our question of the day. We're going to catch Walton up to speed. He's been out of the game for a little bit. We're going to go through AMA notes, dev dive, and then talk about some Gen 0 summoning. Alright, so first off, looking at Jewel price right now. Let me try to pull that up unless you guys can beat me to it. I don't have it readily available. We're at about $7.
44.
$7.44?
Yep.
Alright. I see, Walton, you're always on Johnny on the spot when it comes to Jewel price. So that's nice to see that kind of bounce up a little bit from 7 where it's been hovering around. So that's good. One of the things that I want to take our listeners through is we have the King Sumo link, and that is live right now. We're going to share that in the notes on YouTube, on Anchor, and inside the Discord. We have 1 day and 21 hours left as of the time of this podcast, so by the time it drops, probably in a day and 18 hours or so. And this is the at-cost Gen 0 summon. And so we have 2 Gen 0s, and we are going to allow 2 winners. And the first winner is going to get the lower number Gen 0, that's 248. And he is a Pirate Gardener, and you have the opportunity to summon at cost. And so we're going to let you have the offspring of summoning with our Gen 0. And our hope here is we can allow some people to utilize, 1, the tools that we've developed for summoning, and then 2, hopefully we get some people that are entering into this contest who may not have access to a Gen 0, and they have the opportunity to summon at cost. And so that's just the hiring cost and the summoning fees. So you can get a cost-effective Gen 1 with 10 of 10 summons to really help you build out your hero stable and hopefully help you go after land. So we're really excited to share that. So go check out the King Sumo link. Alright, so next thing I want to talk through is Discord fix. We have fixed the link in Discord. My infinite apologies to people. I clearly don't read when you click generate link for Discord because it has an expiry on it unless you select the does not expire option. And so on all of our media platforms, we've had expired links out there. So we're not trying to make this more exclusive or anything like that. This should be fixed now, updated on our website, updated on YouTube, and updated on the podcast notes. All right, then last thing I want to say, and I'll get your guys' opinion on this too, but I'm really excited to announce that when I was listening to the AMA notes, we had our very own Rocket Man and Titan Tom from our Discord channel here in Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms. Yep, representing with some killer questions. So I could not be more thrilled that, we have this going on, and the highest compliment that has been paid to me and Neindorf and Walton over the past month. There was a guy who joined our Discord channel a few weeks ago, and he mentioned, I think I just found the deepest level of DFK nerd. And, I took that as a compliment personally. So that's pretty exciting. And, it makes it a lot more fun when you're listening to the AMAs and you're like, oh, I know that guy. I chat with him on a daily basis. So I thought that was pretty cool. What do you guys think?
I think it's great to see people engaged, and it's really fun to kind of feel like you get to know some of the people a little bit more than just a random guy that steps on. Because we've chatted with these people, you kind of bouncing ideas off each other, and I don't know, that little sense of community that you grow is pretty cool.
I don't think that guy could be more right if he wanted to be. I mean, you guys are huge nerds. Some of the stuff that you guys talk about is over my head. I can't even deny it. Like it's some of this stuff. I'm like, I gotta ask like 3 or 4 questions before I quite understand it. So I agree 100% with that comment.
All right, well, we'll continue to take it as a compliment. All right, Neindorf, take us away with the question of the day.
Sure. We'll switch gears a little bit on this one. You notice that your heroes are getting lonely lately? Have they are they in need of a summoning partner, perhaps?
Yes. Yes, they are. Go on.
Well, you see, there's an app for that. Well, soon to be, we hope, anyway.
All right, so
Uh,
it is January 31st. We are about, well, if math serves me correctly, 15 days away from Valentine's Day. And for those of you out there who are looking for a special partner for your heroes, we're building an app for that. So a bit of a teaser to a segment here that's coming in the podcast later tonight. We're going to go through in the dev dive what we've been working on and a really fun and exciting new development for subscribers out there. So let's go ahead and first thing we wanted to do is we haven't had a chance to catch up with Walton in a while. And we kind of wanted to catch him up to speed. Walton and I actually met over the weekend, and some of the things that we were talking about, we just felt would be great topics to refresh for our community listeners, and hopefully maybe catch some of those up to speed who haven't. If I feel like DFK, if you miss a minute, you miss an hour. If you miss a week, you miss a month. It's one of these communities and games that it's evolving so fast that you really gotta be on the spot and researching hours a day. I feel like personally to even stay like aware of what the topics are. So we wanted to do a quick catch up for Walton and for those of you listeners out there who may have stepped away or are just joining for the first time. So first concept we want to go through, and Neindorf, I'll let you take this question. What is a hero purebred? And this is one that if Sandwich Punch is listening, he's going to be very concerned that we get this correct. So be careful here.
Yeah, so when we were all beginning this DeFi Kingdoms journey, I think people got this idea of purebred meaning, you look at the hero card and it says pirate, pirate, and they're like, oh, it's a pure pirate. Well, that's kind of evolved over time as we've kind of realized that the class and subclass genes are actually not related at all. So the fact that those two are the same really doesn't make anything pure. It just is you have two separate genes that happen to match. So what we refer to now as a pure, or at least closer to pure, class would mean that your recessive traits, or some of them or all of them, match the main dominant gene. So it's really difficult to get an actually pure main class where it would be like, say, pirate dominant and then recessive 1, 2, and 3 are all also pirate. That's very rare.
Sure.
But typically I usually just use it for if the recessive number 1 matches the dominant. I think that's, in my opinion, that's close enough to pure that that's kind of what I'm usually referring to.
And so right now on, for those of our listeners who are on YouTube, I just brought up a primary class ninja, subclass ninja. So what you're telling me is that those two together, that's not a pure. That it needs to be the ninja primary class and then the recessive genes, which are hidden right now on the hero card. Those are what contribute to what we call a pure class hero. Is that right?
That's right. And, it's much more difficult to have, it is possible, and we'll talk about this later, but it's much more difficult to have a quote unquote pure advanced plus class. The basic classes can be pure much more simply based on, who you choose to summon with or who the parents are. But again, yeah, we'll get to that later too.
All right. And then a good shout out opportunity for everyone out there, if you go to our website that we have, dfk-adventures.herokuapp.com, and I'll have this in the show notes. You can type in your hero information, and you're actually going to be able to see that hidden data out there. And so, Walton, have you been using this now as you're starting to catch back up to speed?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why the question came up. I mean, if you look at some of these heroes, you'll find the advanced, you'll find some other stuff. I guess we're mainly talking about purebred and whatnot, but I was looking at the dominant, active one, active two, what you guys got on the DeFi King or DeFi DFK Adventures app. And so I had a few questions with that. With first, what's a pure? Second, what is it worth? Kind of, I think I kind of brought this up to Dink last night when I was searching for some heroes. Is it worth going after a hero that has an advanced or transcendent gene as its dominant? I'll kind of let him explain that a little bit. I know you guys maybe already had talked about it, but it was completely new to me and pretty helpful in my opinion.
Yeah. So, since those skills don't really have names yet, I'm not sure if they will or not eventually. But yeah, like you're saying, the skills refer to like basic 1 through 8, and then so on and so forth. But basically, the numbering scheme, if you can't see you don't happen to pick two that have a chance to mutate where it turns yellow, right? The short answer for the math is that basically basic 1 and 2 could mutate, 3 and 4 could mutate, 5 and 6 could mutate. It's just kind of a numbering scheme that the devs came up. And that like counting scheme works for really all gene pairs in the game, whether it be profession, whether it be all of these things, even some of the things like visual genes too. Turns out, which we haven't really talked a lot about in our podcast, but yeah, they all basically play by the same genetic rule book in this game, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I really like how you can apply some of that same logic. It helps create a few shortcuts in the mind, at least, as you're trying to think about how things could pair together, and they're using the same methods for mutations as well. All right, well, I got a Gen 1 at the moment who needs some help, so I'm gonna step aside for that, and I'm gonna let you guys chit chat.
Sure. Yeah, so I think the next thing I guess actually, no, Walton, I'll turn it over to you. Is there anything else on that site, that we could explain to our viewers that isn't clear, or maybe we could use some information on the site as like, oh, by the way, that's what this means?
I think the main thing is like, for example, I had one that was a basic 5 to a basic 6, and you guys kind of explained, or a basic 4 to 5, and you guys kind of explained you kind of wanted opposite. You want 1 to 2, 3 to 4.
Right.
That was helpful. I know when I was kind of shopping for some heroes the other day, I noticed that some had advanced classes. And I guess what are the percentages on some of that advanced class? Like why should somebody not go towards a hero for that advanced class? Is it that rare? Is it like a 0.01% chance that it could go over to your hero? Is that kind of what you're trying to do with the basics, I guess? Is the basic mutation, is that what you're trying to go for? So if someone had an advanced 1, you have an advanced 2, would that be worth it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And yeah, the math that we're all used to running in our head for, say, pairing a monk to a pirate to get that ninja, now you got to start thinking of the multiple levels deep here. Now, not only do you have main class and profession to worry about, but you also have these possible skills, actives and passives, that you kind of want to try to pair as many of those up for a mutation as possible, because the only thing that, in my opinion, at this point that could happen with these skills that become advanced or elite is that you add value to your hero. Like if you get an unlucky roll and say none of your basics mutate into an advanced, but you still chose a monk pirate and you ended up with a ninja with basics. I mean, a ninja still has value, right?
Exactly.
But I think the opposite's true too, right? So what if you ended up with your Steve the pirate and you're like, oh, crap, I got another Steve. Well, if Steve ended up getting 1 or 2 advanced skills, he actually might be more valuable in the long run. I don't know that that's necessarily the case now, because not everyone is pricing that into the market, because you can't see it on the hero card yet. So I think the devs need to get that information on the hero card so we can start letting the market decide the value of these things. Right. But yeah, I appreciate that feedback though. We probably should put like a flow chart or a bit some verbiage on the site to help our listeners and users remember exactly what all these numbers mean.
Mm-hmm. I think the next question is when you go ahead and create this like little hero match thing, are you going to be doing it with all heroes available, or are you going to be doing it with all heroes available for rent, or how are you going to be going about that?
Yeah, that's a good. I'm actually still thinking that over. I think phase number one will probably be of the entire hero population, and the simple reason for that is the way that the Graph API server that they have out there is defined.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your list of heroes in one column, like one table, and then you've got auctions over in a whole another table that are kind of disjoint. So it's
Okay.
from a data perspective, it's really easy for me to filter on the heroes down to which ones are, matching. But then it's like a whole entirely other data set that doesn't really is kind of disjointed. And so I think at least for initially, until I can solve that harder problem, it'll probably be just here's the entire population of heroes that match your criteria. I think from what I plugged in our R2 Gen Zeros, and I think if you can start really restrictive, like I want everything to match, and I think I ended up still getting like one or two other Gen Zeros for our pilot,
Really?
which is really cool. But then as you start to relax, one widget at a time, so to speak, the number does start to blow up. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something we'll have to play with, and we'll continue to advance this over time. But yeah, I think it would be more useful to our users if it was for auctions. Um, but stay tuned. We'll see how far we can get with this.
No, I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think finding your best possible match, even if it's not necessarily rentable. I mean, I know you can search for heroes by IDs, so if you wanted to go through your top 10, you could search for them real quick. I don't think that'd be an issue at all. Also, the one thing I do like with this is a lot of times you can find the owner on Discord. So let's say you do have a great match. You might be able to contact him and say, hey, you want to list your hero? I'd be willing to, 125 jewel just to summon with your hero, especially if your odds are really improved. Or, hey, you want to summon with mine, or vice versa. We could do it really cheap between us. You take one, then next time when they're ready to go, you take the other. Something like that. So I
Yeah,
like that idea.
absolutely. And that is the cool thing about, having a Discord community that's so closely tied to the game is you kind of can reach out to people. And I've tried that a few times and had, if people don't want to do it or sell, that's totally legit. You just don't pester them, right? And try to be a nice citizen, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think everyone's pretty respectful. I mean, it's nice to
Yeah,
be able to kind of reach out to them and, interact with them like you're saying and at least ask. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
that's right.
Especially if it's going to benefit both of you. Down the road, I think people, if you get that set up, I think people will definitely be interested. And I think with what's going on, people would be really interested with working with some other people because, I mean, it'd benefit you both if you each kind of took a turn at it.
The next topic here that's kind of related to something I'd mentioned earlier is I was looking at, also pairing one of my heroes just to see who was out there, what skills I was looking for. I popped one up, and it happened to be a summoner that I have. I was looking at his recessive class skills, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute! He's a summoner, but his recessive one is a ninja." And I'm like, "Whoa, that shouldn't happen." And I actually had to phone a friend. I had to message Mr. Zipper on Discord real quick, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that can happen. It's pretty rare." But basically, what had happened is when I had summoned him, obviously I was going for that sage, right? So I had a ninja on one hand and a summoner. He said what happened is the gene swap that occurred on the ninja swapped out his garbage gene, I'll call it, his Steve the Pirate gene to dominant, and his ninja became R1. And then when those merged together to form my new hero, his R1 beat the other guy's R1. So it's really kind of cool. So now I'm on the lookout for a ninja to pair with this summoner, and I actually have a higher probability of getting either the sage or the summoner or the ninja now, because now that I have one extra, it's kind of like pure, like we were talking earlier. It's more of a pure advanced than I've ever seen in my hero stable before. So I thought that was kind of cool. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the opportunity with that, and you always want your best opportunity when you're gonna be summoning these heroes, and when you see something like that come up, and I mean, let's face it, you're trying First Age, kind of disappointed you didn't get it, but you're actually excited at the same time that it kind of worked out that way because now you feel like you might have even a better opportunity down the road.
That's right. And in things like that, when I found out that in my hero, I'm like, ooh, now I'm like, this guy, I don't even really want to summon with him now. I'm like, I want to get him up some levels, and so that we can add, start juicing up some tiers into these
For sure.
classes. Actually, that's a good little segue, real quick. Um, Maybe we could, before we get into the AMA notes, you had a turn with the Gen Zeros, and did you have the opportunity to use tiers for the first time?
Yeah, I actually found a hero that was a level 10 legendary, and then our hero was a level 5. So I put an extra 30 tiers on that.
Wow.
And it turned out to be a pretty good hero. It was a monk, not dominant or not pure by your guys' standards, I should say, but it was a monk fisherman. That was rare. So I did like that. The one thing that I was kind of hoping for, and maybe we'll see a little bit more down the road, is he didn't necessarily have bad stats, but for paying that extra 30 jewels, I was expecting to see a little bit more. But I will say, when I take a look at it, I had a lot of 9 and 8s and only 1 6. So
Oh
I
wow, yeah.
am not 100% sure of how a lot of these monks have been summoning or created, or you know what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, he did turn out pretty decent. Now, I've had some that have had higher stats where I wanted him to be. So I think that's where I'm a little judgmental with it, I guess, is, if you could call it.
Sure, sure.
But spending an extra 30 jewel, I guess, or extra 30 tiers, I think it might be more beneficial to kind of hold off on that. And the reason being is the more these start to level up, I think it's going to be better off down the road for you than to try to get something that kind of has high tiers within the first 5, 10, maybe even 15 levels. I don't, in my opinion, I didn't see a huge jump. I guess that's
That's a
what I'm
good
trying to say.
point. I actually hadn't considered. Like when you're only a couple sets of 5 levels in, this is very much progressive. Like every 5 more is better and better and better and better. So I kind of get what you're saying. You almost are better off kind of stockpiling tiers for, months down the road when all the Gen Zeros say are at level 20 or 25 or something crazy, and it's going to cost you, it could be hundreds of tiers on each hero moving forward. That's something I guess I'm sitting on over 1,000 tiers just because they've been slowly accumulating from questing. And I'm like, well, I about sold some, but they're so cheap right now. It's like, well, maybe, what I'm hearing now, and I think this is probably good advice too for our listeners, and obviously not pure financial advice, do your research, but it seems like the market for tiers is at an all-time low right now because the utility of them is also low. But as people level up their heroes, there's going to be more need to spend tiers. So that's very interesting. I like that little tidbit.
Exactly. And I kind of feel like I guess my main thing for me that kind of made me feel like it was going to level up pretty high, or at least have higher stats, was I've seen a lot of level 5s. That was the first time I seen a level 10. It was a legendary Gen Zero. I haven't seen it. He's obviously buying stamina potions. He's
Oh
obviously
yeah.
using those hardcore on his hero, which is good for him. But I guess with me seeing one that was almost double what's offered out there, was that way. And I think that kind of brings me into what I was telling you with the runes. I feel like the runes, obviously, I think they'll get more valuable down the road, but definitely, like you said, with the
Oh yeah.
tiers, hold on to the tiers. And this is the craziest part about it. If you're doing basic heroes and you want to add tiers to it to try to, improve your chances for stats, it's going to cost you 10 extra. Doesn't seem too bad. But it definitely add up down the road. But if you want to do, an elite or even an advanced class,
Yeah.
I mean, those ones are already starting off, 40 I think, or 30. I can't
Yeah, I think
remember
you're right. I think
exactly.
it's 40
I
for
think it's
advanced.
40. But then if you want to go to even higher, if you want to do a Dragoon with a Sage, I think that's 70.
Yeah,
And so if you're really trying to improve your stats and even get them up even better, I mean, that could cost you easily, probably, 250 down the road, easily,
wow.
as more as this game goes on.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that was one of your good turns. Might as well catch us up on both of them for our listeners. Did you have anything else good come about your last turn?
So I ended up getting another good one. I mean, I got a mythic. You can't be disappointed with a
Oh,
mythic because
10 of
you're always
10.
going to make your money back. I mean, I was really happy with the monk fisherman rare. That's a great one. I think I'll definitely probably double and a half my money. The monk
Perfect.
I am happy for, but here's the problem: I'm not in the gardens, so
Ah,
that's
yeah.
it's a gardener, and I'm not in the gardens, and in my opinion personally, is I feel like the gardens is one of the more devalued for professions. That's just because I don't feel like a lot of people are in the gardens, and the fact being is it takes so long to level them up. I mean, that's just kind of
Yeah.
what I'm seeing a lot is if you have a fisherman or a forager, you can level them up. And one thing that I'm noticing with just kind of recent sales, the higher level you have, the easier chance you have of getting rid of your heroes. I have a great pirate miner that's a mythic 10 out of 10, but it's only level
Hmm.
2, and I'm seeing other ones go through for a lot more than mine. And the one thing I'm noticing is its leveling has been up, and if you get to level 5, everyone already I hope everyone kind of knows, but if you have a mythic or a legendary, you have more shots at basically your hero getting more stat bonuses. And so I feel like the hero looked really great once you get to level 5 because you get all those bonuses where you don't really
Oh
hit those
yeah.
until level 5. So
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like those mythic level ups, when you get to that level 5 and you get that extra bonus stats, you're going to get an unlucky roll here and there and leveling up, and you're going to get 5 or something instead of the 8 or 9 skill or stat points. So I think that'll definitely help take the edge off those somewhat worse rolls. Um, I think that's you'd mentioned gardening. I think that's actually a really good segue to start into some of our AMA notes. One that was a question that was asked. Though the gardens are going to lose their luster a little bit, if you will. And their answer to that was basically, we don't modify the formula. It's there's the three pieces that feed into the garden rewards, and that's all fixed based on how much liquidity there is, how many people are in it, and all of that. But the question that I really didn't get answered that I kind of would have been my segue would be, yeah, you're right. These gardener heroes seem like they're not very valuable because if you're in one garden, I need what, maybe three gardeners max, right? Whereas like think of
mhm.
miners. Like you can roll three miners in a crew and you need three crews if you want to go full time. Like it just seems like there's not really a desire for a miner or for gardeners right now. So, that they didn't really address the concern, but I think that's something that they'll have to look at going forward. Otherwise, those are going to start to drop in value.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, that's the difference is, I mean, I got the pirate miner and I have him listed for, 400 jewel more just because miners are definitely more desirable. The floor for the miners are, a lot higher than a gardener. And like you were saying, I mean, if you're not really in the gardens, you're really just kind of going in there to get some of the, I guess, loot or whatever you guys call it. And if you're not pulling that, even, I mean, it's tough.
That's right. So I'm looking over the notes here. Other things from the AMA, they talked about some minor reorging. I mean, not a whole lot exciting there for me. I think our listeners can read through those notes or listen in if they want. They did talk a little bit more about the grant program, and then they released the site where you can submit a form. I think that's really exciting for me because I think what they want to do is, they want to kind of combine um, people in this community with the just the sheer cleverness, or I'll say, or the ideas that this community is able to come up with, and they want to kind of tie that back into, ways to get people into the game that might not have the capital to jump in. Especially, now that I'd say we're middle of the pack. We're not early anymore in this game necessarily. So I think that's really cool. Personally, I don't have any. I'm a software engineer, but I don't have any smart contract history. But this program, it almost really makes me want to jump out there and just dip my feet in, because it's like there's just I don't know. There's just so much interesting things with these tokens. The devs they know what they're doing. What can I say?
Yeah, and I think you get somebody that's passionate about this game, and why not start to implement some of this stuff or reward some of these guys that are putting a lot of work into improving some of the stuff that that can be improved upon, because there are some updates that they could make. I mean, that's with anything that you're doing, so I'm not like trying to call them out. I don't want them to think that
Sure.
at all, but definitely how it is. They were in the early stages, like you said. We're past that. There's some people coming up with some great stuff, and why not pass that along to some of the people that are just getting in to kind of help their odds and basically inform them a little bit more and give them opportunities that necessarily they haven't built, but there's a great tool for other people to use, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, looking over this. Oh yeah, the next thing. There was also a pretty lengthy question about skills, and are skills going to matter, and is that the most important thing? And basically, what I got out of it is skills. Like you need to start leveling up those stats to get them as high as we can. And I think that leads into questions of, well, what about professions? Do you want to match your skills with those? Or sorry, stats rather. Repeating myself here.
I think you know what you're saying, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Or am I trying to stick true to the class of the hero for combat sort of quests? And I think really the devs didn't have any huge advice other than the fact that yes, the stats are going to matter and higher stats are going to be better. Which it's really obvious, but that's going to really make that next level up where the guy gets 4 points going to make that a little painful. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. And I think that brings us kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Is I think some of these when you get a Dragoon back in the day, just a few months ago, people are like, oh, I want a Dragoon Miner. That's what it kind of matches with. I mean, that's what I was looking for. Now you look at it and it's like,
Yep.
I think a Dragoon Forager or Fisherman might even be even more valuable, in my opinion, just
That's
because you can level them up quicker. Let's say you want to get some of these stamina potions and get your Dragoon up to like a level 10. When you start doing these combats, you're going to realize, you're going to want an overall good warrior, and I think Dragoon is up there. They have a good overall kind of stats in general. Obviously, I'm talking before the Dread Knight. Obviously, if you get Dread Knight and can go about it that way, even then, I think just down the road, what you're going to want is a Fisher or a Forager when you're trying to level up stats and you're trying to get them up to a higher stat level and to basically move them on. I think that's what I was saying earlier, is that was the first time I saw hero that had a level 10, and obviously it was a fisherman. I had a monk trying to make a ninja fisherman. I think everyone's trying to do that.
Yep.
And they had a level 10, and his stats, I shared it with you, and his stats were pretty good. I mean, they weren't like, oh my god, this is unreal, but at the same time it's like, wow, like that's from a lower level one. That one's way ahead of some of these other heroes that you're seeing out here for rent.
Yeah, I was surprised at almost how well-rounded. It almost seems like the random rolls for those, the level 5 and the level 10 had kind of helped pull up some of those normally lower categories that are off class, if you will.
Exactly.
That was really cool to see, yeah. And having not gone through that, I'm excited to see when I get my first hero to 10, but that's going to be a long time.
Have you were able to level up Mythic yet to a level 5 or?
No, I've have a legendary pirate miner that I got to level 5. My mythic that I have he's still about 4.5, I'd say. I didn't make him right away. He's a little newer, so he's kind of behind a bit. But yeah, I'm looking forward to when that comes.
I was just curious to kind of see the difference just between a legendary and a mythic. I don't know if it's a huge difference. Obviously, there will be a huge difference between a common and a mythic. Maybe not at the start,
Right.
because it seems like everything's going to be pretty close for the first, 5 to 15 levels. But once you get past those, it looks like they're going to start to pull away just with those extra stat bonuses that you're going to get.
Oh yeah, yep, no doubt. Okay, so I think then the last topic here that we really wanted to touch on was the huge drop that Frisky, I don't know if it was intentional or accidental that he dropped, but he basically said that yeah, if you want to earn land, there's gonna be like a tournament style sort of deal going down, and everybody's like, what? It's like that is huge. So now you see those people racing to level 10, and I think there's only like a handful of heroes that are raced to 10. Like I want to say like somewhere in the neighborhood of 10-ish heroes, and maybe that's gone up since I'd seen the stat. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you think about it in terms of an investment, and I think someone on our Discord channel suggested that they might have heard a rumor that if you win the right to buy land, that the purchase price might still be 5,000 jewel. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot, right? But when you see the
Yeah.
minimum that's out there for sale is like 50 grand or 50,000 jewel, it's like, wow, yeah. So now I can start to understand people pouring, maybe even someone pouring 500 jewel into a hero to juice them up levels. I mean, I can start to see there's some light at the end of that tunnel possibly.
Right. And I had some summons that I was able to, some of the stuff that I already had. But I think what that will do is probably raise the cost of the inventory that's going to cost to use those stamina potions.
Oh
I know I
yeah.
spent, I want to say about 30 or 40 jewel just to basically get ours to level 5. And that was 16. That was only 16 extra summons. And I
Right.
told you, be careful with those stamina potions. If those don't load right away, do not hit it again, because those stamina, they will not it will not cancel out if the stamina's full. It will still load it. I wasted one, and I had spent a
Oh.
decent amount of money to do that. And just be very careful. Don't be impatient when you're using the stamina potions, because you could completely just trash those. So that's my
Oh,
warning
that's a
to
good point.
anybody
Yeah.
that's trying to use the stamina. Be careful of that. And it is very, it costs a lot of money, but I get what you're saying. I mean, 5,000 is not cheap though. I mean, that's
Oh,
still
it
at
isn't.
current prices, 35,000, 40,000. It's still pretty expensive. And I see why people are starting to level those up.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense why people are starting to hit those level 10s. And I'm
Yep.
thinking people are going to keep on going as far as they can to kind of hit that race. And if you can do it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Um, I guess my advice to you is, if you're going to do that, I'd probably try to make sure it's at least a mythic, or not, sorry, not at least a mythic, at least a legendary or a mythic. If you're going to try to invest a lot of money, at least make it worth your while and make sure it's a legendary or a mythic, because over time, I think we've seen those stats, and those start to pull away from the rares, obviously a lot farther down the road.
Do.
So make sure if you're going to do that, you're investing wisely.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think the only time that a rare for sure makes sense is if it's those Gen Zeros, right? Because those guys are going to be able to summon and spend those tiers we talked about.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. I
kind of a
mean, that
no-brainer.
makes a lot more sense, because those Gen Zeros, we're going to be. I mean, those are going to be, they're unlimited summoning, and for those to level up to level, the max of 100 or wherever, or if that goes even farther than that, it just makes sense, because I mean, we don't know where they're going to be at for adding on stats, but you'd assume as you level up, the game goes on. You're not going to start at the stats that we're currently starting at right now if you're going to add on those additional tiers. So
Yep, that's right. Okay, I think that pretty much covers us for tonight. I don't know, do you have any closing notes you'd like to add?
I really don't have anything extra. It's the tournament thing is kind of crazy. I bet a lot of people are trying to spend a lot of money to get their heroes leveled up. I think that will give you, obviously, probably a better chance, obviously. But don't sleep on, if you haven't started doing that, my advice would be, if you can afford it, a common Dragoon, put some money into it, get it up to a level 5. I don't think anyone's going to pull away too far for this land giveaway. So my recommendation is get an elite hero, a Dragoon or a Sage. Put some money into it if you want to give you a better chance at, some of these land giveaways that are going to happen right away.
That's right. Yeah, and I think we're going to look forward to seeing. They also did mention too. Some information about making the map have more details and names and whatnot. So I don't know. I guess my closing remark is that this every time there's an AMA, I seem to go a little deeper and get a little bit more bullish, and I think that happened again today. So, got to say, yeah, I'm loving the project, loving this game. I think they're doing everything they need to do to keep us hooked.
Oh, for sure. I like the new aspects. They obviously keep on advancing this a lot better, and I like the way that they're going with it. These tournament style, I'm really interested in the tournament style. I think it's a lot of our heroes have been sitting kind of dormant, to be honest. We've been doing these questings, but these questings haven't. I mean, let's face it, guys. Like I said, I'm not trying to knock it, but it's getting kind of boring. Like if we can start doing some combat, some of these tournaments and stuff, it's going to get a lot more fun, a lot more interesting, and I think it'll get a lot more people involved for sure.
Yep, no doubt. All right. Well, I think that does it from us in Hot Air Balloon. We'll keep you informed. Raph's fine. He's just like he said, the Gen 1s needed a little attention. So, all right, you guys, have a good night, everyone.
All right, have a good night. See you guys.